My name is Samuel Barnes, and at 68 years old, I thought I had experienced all the surprises life could offer. After building my business from nothing, I recently treated myself to a Mercedes I had dreamed of for decades. Then came a phone call that left me speechless. My daughter Amanda, who had completely cut me out of her life for 8 years, suddenly wanted to reconnect. Her exact words still echo in my mind. "Dad, I miss you. Come to dinner tomorrow. Oh, and could you bring $300,000? Let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button to find out what happened when I showed up with a surprise of my own." I was born in a small town in Michigan to working-class parents who taught me the value of honest work. From an early age, I understood that nothing worthwhile comes easy. At 19, I started a small automotive parts supply business with a loan of $5,000. Those early days were all about survival, working 16-hour days and living on ramen noodles and coffee. When I was 25, I met Grace. She walked into my tiny office, looking for a job as a receptionist, and I knew immediately she was special. With her warm smile and kind eyes, she brought sunshine into my life. We married 6 months later in a simple ceremony at her parents' backyard. Grace believed in me more than I believed in myself, working alongside me to build our dream. 3 years into our marriage, Amanda was born. The moment I held my baby girl, my entire world shifted. She had her mother's eyes and my stubborn chin, and I was completely in love. As our only child, Amanda became the center of our universe. We might not have been wealthy back then, but our home was rich with laughter and love. As the business slowly grew, I made sure every extra penny went toward giving Amanda opportunities I never had. Piano lessons, dance classes, the best schools we could afford. Grace and I lived modestly so our daughter could thrive. I drove the same Ford pickup for 15 years, patching it up myself whenever it broke down, while making sure Amanda had everything she needed. Our favorite tradition was Sunday afternoon drives. No matter how busy the week had been, we reserved those hours for family time. Amanda would sit between Grace and me in the truck, singing along to the radio as we explored country roads. When she was around 10, I started letting her steer while sitting on my lap, her face serious with concentration, Grace pretending to be terrified, which made Amanda giggle uncontrollably. I remember her 16th birthday when I surprised her with a used car I had secretly restored. Nothing fancy, just a reliable Honda that would get her safely to school and back. The way she squealed and threw her arms around me made every hour spent working on that car worthwhile. That night, she insisted on taking Grace and me for a drive, proudly showing off her new driving skills. Amanda was a bright student, consistently bringing home report cards that made us burst with pride. When she got accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship, Grace and I cried tears of joy. Our daughter would have the education neither of us had been able to afford. The day we drove her to college was bittersweet, our car packed with dorm supplies and 18 years of memories. Then, during Amanda's sophomore year, Grace started having headaches. At first, we thought nothing of it, just stress or needing new glasses. But when she collapsed in our kitchen one Sunday morning, our world changed forever. The diagnosis was brutal: advanced brain cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. Grace being Grace, she fought for 18. Those months were a blur of hospital visits, treatments, brief moments of hope crushed by devastating test results. Amanda came home frequently, putting her studies on hold to spend time with her mother. I watched my daughter mature overnight, helping care for Grace with a tenderness that broke my heart. The night Grace passed away, Amanda and I sat on either side of her hospital bed, holding her hands. Grace made me promise 2 things: to take care of our daughter and to find happiness again someday. I swore I would keep both promises, though at that moment, happiness seemed an impossible dream. The funeral was a testament to how many lives Grace had touched. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects. Amanda and I stood side by side, accepting condolences in a fog of grief. That evening, we sat at our kitchen table, picking at food brought by neighbors, sharing memories of Grace. Despite our overwhelming loss, I felt a bond with my daughter that I believed nothing could break. How wrong I was. The change in Amanda was gradual at first, so subtle I almost missed it. She returned to college 2 weeks after the funeral, which I understood. Being in our house, surrounded by reminders of Grace, was painful. I encouraged her to focus on her studies, knowing her mother would have wanted that. Our phone conversations grew shorter. Where we once talked for an hour several times a week, our calls dwindled to brief check-ins. I chalked it up to her busy schedule and grief process. Everyone deals with loss differently, I told myself. Give her space. I drove up to Northwestern one weekend a month, taking Amanda to dinner, bringing care packages of homemade cookies and groceries. During these visits, she seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone. When I asked about her classes or friends, she gave vague answers before steering the conversation toward money. Did the insurance company pay out after Mom's death? How was the business doing? These questions felt odd, but I reasoned that perhaps financial security had become important to her after losing her mother. During her junior year spring break, Amanda didn't come home as planned. Instead, she called to say she was going to Cancun with friends. I was disappointed but said nothing. The following week, she posted photos on social media of her vacation. Among the group pictures was one of Amanda with a young man, his arm possessively around her waist. When I asked about him during our next call, her voice brightened for the first time in months. His name was Jackson Thompson. They had met in an economics class and had been dating for several months. I was hurt. She hadn't mentioned him before, but happy she had found someone who made her smile. I met Jackson for the first time at Amanda's graduation. Tall and conventionally handsome with perfectly styled hair and an expensive watch. He shook my hand with a grip that was slightly too firm, his smile never reaching his eyes. While Amanda was talking with her professors, Jackson asked pointed questions about my business, its annual revenue, and my retirement plans. The conversation left me uneasy, but I dismissed my concerns. I was probably just being an overprotective father. After graduation, Amanda announced she was moving to Chicago with Jackson. He had secured a position at a prestigious financial firm, and she had a job offer from a marketing company. I helped them move into their apartment, a luxury high-rise with a doorman and rooftop pool. When I asked how they could afford such a place on entry-level salaries, Amanda vaguely mentioned Jackson's family helping out. I invited them for Christmas that year, my first holiday season alone in the house where Grace and I had built our life together. Amanda called 2 days before to say they couldn't make it. Jackson's parents had surprised them with a ski trip to Aspen. I spent Christmas Day volunteering at a local shelter, trying not to think about my empty home. For her 24th birthday, I drove to Chicago with gifts. A photo album I had compiled of her childhood, featuring many pictures with Grace that I had digitally restored, and a simple pearl necklace that had belonged to her mother. When I presented them at dinner, Amanda barely looked at the album. She tried on the necklace and frowned. "These are a bit outdated, Dad. Jackson bought me diamonds for my last birthday." I noticed Jackson smirk as he refilled his wine glass. Throughout dinner, he made subtle comments about my clothes, my old-fashioned watch, the affordable restaurant I had chosen. Amanda laughed at his jokes, occasionally adding her own observations about my lack of style or technological knowledge. Later that night in my hotel room, I cried for the first time since Grace's funeral, not just for my own hurt feelings, but for what my daughter was becoming. Where was the compassionate young woman who had held her mother's hand through cancer treatments? The girl who once spent her allowance buying food for a homeless man outside our grocery store? Grace would have been heartbroken to see how materialistic and dismissive Amanda had become. Still, I kept trying. Monthly visits, regular phone calls, thoughtful gifts. I expanded the business, which was now thriving, but maintained my modest lifestyle. My success had never been about luxury or status symbols, values I thought I had instilled in Amanda. When Amanda called on a Tuesday evening to announce she and Jackson were engaged, I forced enthusiasm into my voice while my heart sank. She immediately launched into plans for an extravagant wedding, mentioning costs that made my head spin. Before ending the call, she casually said, "Jackson thinks the father of the bride typically covers these expenses." We'll send you the estimates." I sat in my living room long after the call ended, staring at a photo of Grace holding baby Amanda. "I'm trying to keep my promise," I whispered to my late wife's smiling face, "but I don't know how to reach her anymore." The wedding planning quickly became a nightmare. Every week brought new expenses. A venue that cost more than my first house, designer dresses for Amanda and her 7 bridesmaids, exotic flowers flown in from South America. When I gently suggested more reasonable alternatives, Amanda accused me of trying to ruin her special day. "Mom would have wanted me to have the perfect wedding," she said during one particularly heated phone call, weaponizing Grace's memory against me. I transferred $60,000 for initial deposits, then another $40,000 2 months later. Throughout this process, I was consistently excluded from decisions. Amanda and Jackson, along with his parents, made all the choices. The Thompsons, I learned, were old money from Connecticut, with a family business in real estate development. They treated me with thinly veiled condescension whenever our paths crossed at engagement parties or planning meetings. A week before the wedding, I received the seating chart for the reception. My table was near the back of the room, far from the bridal party table where the Thompsons were seated. When I called Amanda to ask about this arrangement, she sighed impatiently. "Dad, we had to consider the overall aesthetic and conversation flow. You won't know most of the people at the front tables. You'll be more comfortable with the cousins and my old teachers." The day of the wedding arrived, a perfect June afternoon. The ceremony was held in a historic cathedral in downtown Chicago, followed by a reception at an exclusive country club. I stood at the back of the church waiting to walk Amanda down the aisle, my first significant role in the entire process. She was breathtaking in her gown, looking so much like Grace that it made my chest ache. As we prepared to walk, she hissed, "Remember to smile, and try not to shuffle your feet like you usually do." I delivered her to Jackson, who didn't even look at me as he took her hand. During the ceremony, I watched from the front row, alone on my side of the aisle, while the Thompson family filled several rows on the opposite side. I thought about Grace, wishing she could see our daughter as a bride, yet relieved she wasn't witnessing how I was being treated. At the reception, my table was even further back than the seating chart had indicated, partially blocked by a large floral arrangement. The other guests at my table were distant relatives who seemed confused about why the father of the bride was seated with them. When it was time for my speech, I approached the microphone with notes I had spent weeks perfecting. I spoke from my heart about watching Amanda grow up, about Grace's love for her, about my hopes for her future happiness. As I returned to my seat, I overheard Jackson whisper to Amanda, "God, that was painful. How many more of these do we have to sit through?" Amanda giggled behind her hand, not realizing I was within earshot. "Just my new father-in-law. Then we can get to the real party." The father-daughter dance was equally heartbreaking. Amanda held herself stiffly in my arms, keeping as much distance between us as possible while still technically dancing. Halfway through the song, she was already looking over my shoulder, smiling at guests, and seemingly counting the seconds until she could escape. The final blow came 3 weeks after the wedding. Amanda and Jackson invited me to their new home, a 5-bedroom house in an upscale Chicago suburb. Over coffee in their massive kitchen, they explained they needed $500,000 for the down payment. "The Thompsons are covering half," Amanda explained, not meeting my eyes. "We thought you might want to match their contribution, to keep things fair." I stared at my daughter, searching for any sign of the person she used to be. "Amanda, that's nearly all of my liquid savings. The business is successful, but that would leave me financially vulnerable." Jackson leaned forward, his tone condescending as if explaining something to a child. "Samuel, property is the best investment you could make. This house will appreciate significantly over time. Really, you should think of it as investing in your future grandchildren's inheritance." I looked around at their already luxurious surroundings, the designer furniture, the expensive artwork, Amanda's diamond-encrusted watch. "I can help with $100,000, I finally said. "That's what I can comfortably manage." Amanda's face hardened. "$100,000 barely covers the landscaping. If that's all you can contribute, then maybe you should just keep it. Despite the hurt, I transferred the money the next day, with a note expressing my love and best wishes for their new home. I never received a thank you. When I called to check if they got it, Amanda was curt, ending the conversation in less than 2 minutes. I drove to their house for Thanksgiving, carrying homemade pies and a family photo album as gifts. No one answered the door. Later that night, I saw Instagram posts of Amanda and Jackson having Thanksgiving dinner at the Thompson family estate. That was the beginning of the complete estrangement. My calls went unanswered, then straight to voicemail. Emails received no response. Christmas cards and birthday gifts were returned unopened. When I sent a certified letter expressing my confusion and hurt, asking what I had done wrong, it came back marked refused. I tried visiting their home once more, only to have Jackson answer the door and inform me that Amanda was too busy to see me. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of her watching from the staircase, before she quickly ducked out of sight. My daughter had completely cut me out of her life, and I had no idea why. Beyond my apparent failure to provide the level of financial support she and Jackson deemed appropriate, the rejection was total and devastating. The first year of estrangement was the hardest. I moved through my days like a ghost, going through the motions at work, returning to an empty house each night. I left voicemails on holidays and Amanda's birthday. I sent cards that were never acknowledged. I drove past their house occasionally, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, maybe create an opportunity for reconciliation. My health began to suffer. I lost weight, developed insomnia, and started experiencing chest pains that my doctor warned were stress-related. "Samuel," he said during one appointment, "you need to find a way to accept what you cannot change. This stress is going to kill you." Around 18 months into the estrangement, I ran into Amanda at a grocery store. My heart leapt at the sight of her examining apples in the produce section. I approached carefully, not wanting to startle her. "Amanda," I said softly, "it's so good to see you." She looked up, her expression freezing when she recognized me. Without a word, she abandoned her shopping cart and walked out of the store. I stood there among the fruit displays, people staring at me as tears rolled down my face. 2 years in, I learned through a mutual friend that Amanda had given birth to a boy named Ethan. I had a grandson I had never met. I sent a gift to their home, a stuffed bear and a savings bond, along with a heartfelt note congratulating them and expressing my hope to meet the baby someday. The package was returned, unopened. 3 years after our estrangement began, I had a minor heart attack. Lying in the hospital bed, no family by my side, I had a moment of clarity. Grace would not have wanted this for me. She made me promise to find happiness again, and I was failing miserably at keeping that promise. Upon discharge, I made 3 decisions that would change my life. First, I hired a talented young manager to handle daily operations at my business, freeing me to work fewer hours. Second, I joined a grief support group, not just for losing Grace, but for the living loss of my daughter. Third, I bought a plane ticket to Italy, a country Grace and I had always dreamed of visiting together. That trip was the beginning of my transformation. Walking through ancient streets, eating meals that lasted hours, conversing with friendly locals despite my limited Italian, I felt alive again. I started taking photographs, developing a passion for capturing beautiful moments. Back home, I enrolled in photography classes and joined a hiking club to find new landscapes to photograph. Through the grief support group, I met others who understood family estrangement. Martha, whose son had cut contact after marrying a controlling wife. James, whose daughters blamed him for their parents' divorce, refusing to hear his side. Bernard, who hadn't spoken to his brother in 20 years over a business disagreement. We formed our own chosen family, meeting weekly for dinner, celebrating holidays together, supporting each other through difficult anniversaries. I began volunteering at a mentoring program for teenagers from single-parent homes. Working with these young people, sharing my business knowledge and life experience, brought unexpected joy. One young man, Luis, particularly reminded me of myself at that age: ambitious, hardworking, in need of guidance. Over the years, I helped him apply to college and secure scholarships. When he graduated with honors in business administration, he asked me to sit in the family section. "You're the reason I made it," he told me, the words healing something broken inside me. 5 years into the estrangement, my business received an unexpected acquisition offer from a major national corporation. After careful consideration and consultation with financial advisors, I sold the company for a sum that far exceeded my wildest expectations. I remained as a consultant, working just 10 hours a week. Suddenly, at 65, I found myself wealthy beyond my needs and with abundant free time. I established a scholarship foundation for students from my old neighborhood. I traveled extensively, checking off destinations from the world map Grace and I had once marked with colorful pins. I took cooking classes, ballroom dance lessons, and even tried skydiving on my 66th birthday. Through a community service project, I met Diane, a retired teacher who had lost her husband to the same type of cancer that took Grace. We bonded over shared experiences and developed a deep friendship. She introduced me to her book club, expanding my social circle further. For the first time in years, my calendar was full of events. My phone regularly chimed with messages from friends, and my home occasionally buzzed with dinner parties and game nights. 7.5 years after Amanda's rejection, I heard through the grapevine that she had a second child, a girl named Lily. I also learned that Jackson's real estate investment firm had suffered significant losses in a market downturn. This information came from Bernard, whose nephew worked in financial services in Chicago. Around this time, I decided to fulfill another dream. I had always admired the craftsmanship and engineering of Mercedes-Benz automobiles. With my new financial freedom, I purchased a silver S-Class, price tag $180,000. It was an extravagance I had never allowed myself before, having always prioritized practical vehicles and modest living. My friend Martha insisted on taking a photo of me beside the car, my hand proudly resting on its gleaming hood. "You've earned this, Samuel," she said as she snapped the picture. "Grace would be happy to see you enjoying life." On impulse, I let Martha post the photo on my rarely used Facebook account. I had maintained the account over the years mostly to see occasional updates about Amanda that friends might share. I never expected that this photo would change everything. 2 days after the Mercedes photo was posted, my phone rang with a number I had stopped hoping to see. Amanda was calling me after 8 years of silence. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. After 8 years of silence, hearing Amanda's voice again was surreal. "Dad," she said, her tone warm and bubbly, as if we had spoken just yesterday. "How are you? It has been way too long." Stunned, I struggled to form words. "Amanda, is everything all right?" "Everything is wonderful. I saw your picture on Facebook. New car, huh? Looks like the business is doing really well. I always knew you were smart with money." The conversation continued with Amanda asking about my health, my activities, whether I had traveled anywhere interesting lately. She laughed at appropriate moments, made sympathetic noises when I briefly mentioned my heart attack, and generally presented herself as the loving daughter I had longed for these past 8 years. Not once did she acknowledge the estrangement or explain her sudden reappearance in my life. Not once did she apologize for returning my gifts, ignoring my calls, or walking away from me in the grocery store. It was as if those 8 years of heartbreak had never happened. Then came the real purpose of her call. "Dad, Jackson and I were talking about how much we miss you. The kids are growing up so fast. Ethan is 7 now, and Lily just turned 3. They should know their grandfather." Her voice took on a wistful quality. "We would love for you to come to dinner tomorrow night. The kids are so excited to meet you." My heart leapt. Despite everything, the prospect of meeting my grandchildren filled me with joy. "I would love that, Amanda. What time should I come?" There was a slight pause before she continued. "Oh, and Dad, I know this might sound strange, but Jackson and I have this amazing investment opportunity. Time sensitive, you know. We need about $300,000 by the end of the week, and since family is the best to do business with, we thought of you first. Could you bring the money when you come? We have all the paperwork ready." The bubble of happiness burst. "Of course. the expensive car photo on Facebook, the sudden reconciliation after 8 years. This wasn't about missing me or wanting her children to know their grandfather. This was about money. Still, I kept my voice neutral. What kind of investment is it? Amanda launched into a vague explanation about commercial real estate development, using buzzwords that sounded impressive but conveyed little concrete information. When I asked specific questions, she became flustered before saying, "Jackson can explain everything tomorrow. He is the financial genius in the family. So, you will bring the money, right? Cash would be best, but a cashier's check works too." After ending the call with a non-committal response about the money, I sat in my living room, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Disappointment, certainly. Anger at being so transparently manipulated. But also, strangely, a sense of clarity and purpose I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, I made 2 important calls. The first was to my attorney, Philip, who had handled the business sale and managed my estate planning. The second was to a private investigator I knew through my community work. "I need information on Jackson Thompson's business dealings and current financial situation," I told the investigator. "Specifically any failed investments, debt, or pending legal issues. And I need it by this afternoon." While waiting for information, I visited my bank and had a long conversation with the financial advisor who had been helping me manage my wealth since selling the business. By early afternoon, I had a plan in place, along with the necessary paperwork. The private investigator's report arrived by email at 3 o'clock. It confirmed what I had suspected. Jackson's real estate firm had made a series of increasingly risky investments that had gone bad. They were carrying substantial debt, and 3 of their properties were in foreclosure. Most tellingly, their personal home had a second mortgage taken out just 6 months earlier, and they were 3 months behind on payments. Social media told another story. Amanda's Instagram account showed family vacations to the Bahamas, designer clothes, expensive restaurants, and lavish birthday parties for the children. They were keeping up appearances while their financial house of cards was collapsing. It was clear now. They didn't want to reconnect with me. They needed a bailout. The sudden dinner invitation, the mention of the grandchildren I had never been allowed to meet, the transparent flattery, all of it designed to soften me up before the ask. Part of me wanted to call and cancel, to tell Amanda I knew exactly what she was doing. But a wiser part recognized this as possibly my only chance to meet my grandchildren. And perhaps, just perhaps, there was an opportunity here to teach an important lesson about family, money, and values. I spent the evening preparing my surprise for Amanda and Jackson. It wasn't the bundle of cash they were expecting, but it was, in its own way, much more valuable. As I worked on the documents with Philip on video call, I felt not anger but a strange sense of peace. For the first time in 8 years, I was taking control of the situation, rather than simply reacting to Amanda's rejection. "Are you sure about this, Samuel?" Philip asked as we finalized the paperwork. "Once it is done, it cannot be easily undone." "I am sure," I replied. "This is the right thing to do." That night, I slept better than I had in years, confident in my decision and ready for whatever the next day would bring. I arrived at Amanda and Jackson's house precisely at 6:30. From the outside, the property still looked impressive, large and stately in an exclusive neighborhood. But now that I knew what to look for, I could see signs of financial strain. The landscaping was overgrown in places. The exterior paint was beginning to peel around the windows, and the luxury SUV in the driveway was at least 5 years old, its once glossy finish now dull with age. I parked my new Mercedes in the driveway, noting how Jackson's eyes widened slightly as he watched from the front window. Taking a deep breath, I gathered the leather portfolio containing my surprise and walked to the door. Amanda opened it before I could knock, her smile wide but not quite reaching her eyes. "Dad, you made it!" She embraced me briefly, a performance of affection that felt hollow after so many years of rejection. She looked older than her 34 years, fine lines around her eyes speaking of stress more than age. "It is good to see you, Amanda," I said, meaning it despite everything. She was still my daughter, still the little girl Grace and I had raised. somewhere beneath the person she had become. Jackson appeared behind her, hand extended in an approximation of warmth. "Samuel, great to see you. Nice car, by the way. The new S-Class, right? I was just looking at those myself." I doubted that very much, given what I now knew about their finances, but I smiled politely and shook his hand. "Thank you for having me over. It has been a long time." Then I saw them, two children standing uncertainly in the hallway. Ethan, tall for 7, with Amanda's eyes and Jackson's square jaw, and little Lily, a tiny version of Grace with curly hair and a curious expression. My grandchildren. My heart constricted with sudden emotion. Kneeling down to their level, I said gently, "Hello there. I am your Grandpa Samuel." Ethan regarded me solemnly. "Mom said you were away on a long trip. Did you bring us presents?" I glanced up at Amanda, who had the grace to look embarrassed at the lie she had apparently told to explain my absence. "Not this time," I said to Ethan, "but I am very happy to meet you both." Lily, less inhibited than her brother, stepped forward and touched my face with small fingers. "Your face has lines," she observed. I laughed genuinely for the first time since arriving. "Yes, those come with getting older. They are called wrinkles, and each one tells a story." "Do you have stories?" she asked, eyes wide. "Many of them. Perhaps I can tell you some over dinner." Amanda quickly intervened, steering the children away. "Ethan, Lily, go wash up now. Adult conversation time before dinner." The children reluctantly left, Lily turning to wave at me before disappearing upstairs. Amanda led me to an elegantly furnished living room, though I noticed that some of the furniture pieces showed wear, and the art on the walls was different from my last visit, probably sold off to raise cash. Jackson poured drinks, handing me a whiskey in a crystal tumbler. 18-year Macallan, he said with forced casualness. "Only the best for family." I sipped it politely, wondering how much credit card debt that bottle represented. The conversation that followed was strained, filled with superficial questions about my life and vague answers about theirs. Neither Amanda nor Jackson mentioned their financial difficulties or explained their sudden desire to reconnect. Instead, they took turns, subtly highlighting evidence of their success, the vacation photos prominently displayed, casual mentions of country club memberships and private schools for the children. It was an elaborately staged performance, designed to present them as successful equals rather than desperate supplicants. Throughout the pre-dinner conversation, I noticed them exchanging glances, silently debating who would broach the real topic at hand. Finally, as we moved to the dining room, Jackson took the plunge. "So, Samuel, did you bring the documents we discussed? For the investment opportunity?" I patted the leather portfolio I had placed beside my chair. "I brought everything we need to discuss." Relief washed over both their faces. The dinner itself was impressive, a roast that must have been expensive, wine that I recognized as high-end, served on china that had probably been wedding gifts. The children joined us, and I treasured the opportunity to interact with them, learning about Ethan's interest in soccer and Lily's fascination with butterflies. Amanda and Jackson barely touched their food, their anticipation palpable. Once the children were excused to watch television in the other room, Jackson cleared his throat. "Now, about that investment. As Amanda mentioned, we have identified an exceptional opportunity in commercial real estate. The expected return is 15 to 20% annually, but we need to act quickly. 300,000 secures a primary position." I nodded thoughtfully. "And your company is managing this investment?" Jackson shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yes, along with several other investors. It is a consortium approach." "I see. And how are your other properties performing? The lakeside development, for instance, or the River North project?" His eyes widened slightly at my specific knowledge of his business holdings. "Those are, in a transitional phase. The market has been volatile, but this new opportunity is much more secure." Amanda jumped in, clearly sensing Jackson floundering. "Dad, this is really a fantastic opportunity. Jackson has done all the due diligence. The paperwork is ready to sign, and we can take the check tonight. Or cash if you brought cash." I sipped my water slowly, looking between them. Before we discuss that, I am curious about something. Why now? After 8 years of no contact, returned gifts, ignored calls and letters. Why am I suddenly welcome in your home? Amanda had the decency to look uncomfortable. Dad, I know we have had our differences. Differences? I interrupted quietly. Amanda, you completely cut me out of your life. I did not meet my grandchildren until tonight. I had a heart attack 3 years ago, and you never responded to the message my friend left for you. Those are not differences. That is abandonment. Jackson's face hardened. Look, Samuel, families have complicated dynamics. Let's focus on the present and future, not dwell on the past. The past informs the present, I replied, and I find it interesting that your renewed interest in me coincides with both your financial difficulties and my apparent newfound wealth. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Amanda's fake warmth evaporated, replaced by a cold stare. What are you talking about? We are doing very well. 3 months behind on your mortgage, I said calmly. Second lien on this house taken out 6 months ago. 3 commercial properties in foreclosure. Over $120,000 in credit card debt between various cards. Jackson stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You had us investigated? How dare you? How dare I? You ignored me for 8 years, then called the day after seeing my new car to ask for $300,000. What would you have done in my position? Amanda's expression shifted from anger to calculation. Dad, everyone goes through rough patches. We would have told you about our situation eventually, but we did not want to worry you. The important thing is that we are family. We should help each other. Family, I repeated softly. Is that what we are? Because for 8 years you made it very clear we were not. People make mistakes, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I noticed her designer watch was gone, replaced by a cheaper model. I was young and stupid. I listened to bad advice. She glanced pointedly at Jackson. But I have grown up. I want us to be close again. I want my children to know their grandfather. It was a masterful performance, tears welling in her eyes, voice trembling with apparent emotion. 8 years ago, it would have worked. I would have done anything to reconcile with my daughter, to be part of her life again. But I was not the same man I had been 8 years ago. Let's be completely honest with each other, I said. You do not want a relationship with me. You want my money. If I had shown up in a 10-year-old Honda instead of a new Mercedes, we would not be having this dinner. Jackson dropped all pretense. Fine. We need the money. Our business is struggling, and we have some debts. But this is still a legitimate investment opportunity, and you are still Amanda's father. Helping family is what decent people do. I reached for my leather portfolio. You are right about one thing. Family should help family. Amanda's eyes lit up, focused on the portfolio. So you will help us? The $300,000? I brought something better than cash, I said, opening the portfolio and removing a stack of documents. My surprise, I placed the documents on the table and slid them toward Amanda and Jackson. These are trust fund papers for Ethan and Lily. Amanda snatched up the papers, scanning them with confused eyes. Trust funds? What are you talking about? I have established educational trusts for both of my grandchildren. Each contains $150,000 for a total of $300,000, the exact amount you asked for. Jackson grabbed the papers from Amanda, but these are restricted trusts. It says the money can only be used for educational expenses, and it can only be accessed directly by Ethan and Lily when they reach college age. That is correct, I confirmed. The money is specifically for their education and related expenses. Neither of you can withdraw it for any other purpose. Amanda's face contorted with rage. This is not what we asked for. We need that money for our business, for our house. No, I said calmly. You need it to maintain your lifestyle and cover bad investments. This way, regardless of your financial decisions, your children's education is secured. I am helping family, just not in the way you anticipated. Jackson threw the papers down. This is useless to us. Cancel these trusts and give us the cash like we discussed. That is not going to happen, I said, my voice firm but not angry. The trusts are irrevocable. The money will be there for Ethan and Lily when they need it for college, no matter what. Amanda stood up, her face flushed with anger. I cannot believe you would do this to us. After everything we have been through. Everything you have been through? I asked incredulously. Amanda, you abandoned me for 8 years. You kept my grandchildren from me. You only contacted me when you thought I could solve your financial problems. And now you are angry because I am ensuring your children's future instead of funding your lifestyle? We do not need your judgment, Jackson spat. We need liquid capital. Those trust funds do nothing for us right now. I looked at him squarely. They are not meant to do anything for you. They are for your children. Amanda's composure completely collapsed. You selfish old man. You always were tight with money. Mom would be ashamed of you. The mention of Grace stung, but I maintained my calm. Your mother taught you better than this, Amanda. She valued family, honesty, and hard work. She never measured people by their wealth or what they could give her. What would shame her is seeing how you have treated your father, and how you are teaching your children that family connections are only valuable when they come with financial benefit. I stood up, gathering my coat. In addition to the educational trusts, I have made arrangements with Ethan and Lily's schools to cover their tuition directly. I have also established a separate fund for extracurricular activities they might want to pursue: music lessons, sports, summer camps. Those will be paid directly to the providers, not through you. Amanda's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Jackson paced the room, running his hands through his hair in frustration. This offer comes with one condition, I continued. Regular visitation with my grandchildren. Twice monthly dinners, holiday celebrations, attendance at their school events. If you deny me access to them, all payments stop immediately until access is restored. You cannot use money to control us, Jackson shouted. I am not controlling you, I replied. You are free to refuse the entire arrangement, but I will not hand over cash with no strings attached, only to be cut out of their lives again once the money is gone. Amanda's face suddenly shifted, calculation replacing rage. Dad, please, she said, her voice softening. We are in real trouble here. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We could lose our home. The children would be devastated. I understand your situation is difficult, I said, genuinely sympathetic despite everything. And I am willing to help beyond the educational trusts, but not with cash and not without conditions. I removed another document from my portfolio. This is an offer to help you restructure your debt. With my financial advisor's assistance, I will pay for credit counseling and business consultation. If you complete the program and demonstrate changed financial behavior for 6 months, I will consider helping with a portion of your mortgage arrears, paid directly to the bank, not to you. Jackson laughed bitterly. So we get financial babysitting instead of actual help. Thanks for nothing. It is actual help, I corrected him. Just not the blank check you were hoping for. Amanda's face hardened again, her brief attempt at manipulation abandoned. Get out, she hissed. Take your controlling trusts and your condescending offer and get out of our house. Amanda, I said softly, this is not about control. This is about making sure my grandchildren are secure while not enabling the behavior that led to this situation. I love you. You are my daughter. But love does not mean giving you everything you ask for, especially when it would ultimately harm you by reinforcing poor choices. Love? She scoffed. If you loved me, you would help without all these strings and judgments. Real family does not treat each other this way. Real family does not vanish for 8 years and reappear only when they need money, I countered sadly. Real family is not conditional on financial support. At that moment, Ethan and Lily appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. Lily's eyes were wide with confusion. Why is everyone yelling? Is Grandpa leaving already? Before Amanda or Jackson could answer, I knelt down to the children's level. I do have to go now, but I would very much like to see you again soon. Would that be okay with you? Ethan looked uncertain, but Lily nodded enthusiastically. Can you tell me stories next time? About the wrinkles? I smiled at her. I would love that. Jackson stepped forward, pulling the children back. Say goodbye to Mr. Barnes. He was just leaving. The formal address was not lost on me. I was being demoted from Grandpa back to a stranger. I looked at Amanda, hoping to see some softening, some recognition of what she was throwing away, but her expression remained cold. My offer stands, I said quietly as I walked to the door. The educational trusts are established regardless of what you decide about the rest. My phone number has not changed in 20 years. When you are ready to talk about real reconciliation, not just financial assistance, I will be waiting. As I walked to my car, I heard Amanda scream from the doorway. Keep your money. We do not need anything from you. I drove away with a heavy heart, but also a strange sense of peace. For the first time in our long estrangement, I had acted from a position of strength and principle rather than desperation and longing. I had done what I believed was right for my grandchildren while refusing to be manipulated. In the months that followed, I received no communication from Amanda or Jackson. Through my attorney, I confirmed that the educational trusts were secure and the standing offer to pay school tuition directly remained open. I sent birthday cards to Ethan and Lily, unsure if they ever received them. Then, 6 months after our confrontational dinner, I received an unexpected email from Ethan's school. As the tuition sponsor, I was invited to his upcoming soccer championship game. There was no indication whether Amanda knew about this invitation or had approved it. I attended, sitting far enough away that Amanda might not notice me if she did not wish to interact. To my surprise, halfway through the game, Lily spotted me and ran over, climbing onto the bleacher beside me. "Grandpa, you came to see Ethan play." Amanda, following her daughter, stood awkwardly nearby. Our eyes met, and after a moment's hesitation, she sat down beside Lily, creating a buffer between us. "The school invited me," I explained. "I hope that is okay." She nodded stiffly. "Ethan will be glad you came. He kept your birthday card." It was a tiny opening, barely more than a crack, but it was something. We sat in silence watching the game, Lily chattering occasionally about butterflies and her new school friends. After Ethan's team won, he came running over, sweaty and excited. "Did you see my goal, Grandpa?" "I did," I said, my heart swelling at his easy use of the term. "It was excellent." As we stood in the parking lot afterward, Amanda spoke carefully. "The children have a recital next month. If you want to come, I can send you the details." It was not forgiveness or reconciliation, not yet, but it was acknowledgement, the smallest first step toward something new, not the restoration of what was lost, but perhaps the beginning of something different. In the 3 years since then, our relationship has slowly evolved. Amanda and Jackson eventually accepted the debt counseling and business consultation I offered, though our interactions remain somewhat formal. I now see my grandchildren regularly, building the relationship I was denied for so many years. Ethan is becoming an accomplished soccer player, and Lily has discovered a talent for piano that reminds me powerfully of Grace. My own life continues to flourish. My circle of friends, my travels, my volunteer work, my photography all bring me joy. Diane and I remain close companions, sharing books, meals, and occasional trips. The grief of losing Grace and the pain of Amanda's rejection have not disappeared, but they no longer define me. I learned through this long journey that sometimes the greatest act of love is setting boundaries. That reconciliation does not always mean returning to what was before. That happiness can be built in new and unexpected ways when old dreams die. And most importantly, that self-worth must come from within, not from the validation of others, even those we love most dearly. What would you do if someone who abandoned you suddenly returned when they needed something? Would you give them what they wanted? Or would you set boundaries, like I did? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more stories from my life and the lessons I have learned along the way. Thank you for listening. And remember that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in how we treat the people we love.